All right, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, thank you for being here. You know, when you're in this position, the position of Brother Biden, when you refuse to step down, you refuse to do the wise thing, the shots are going to just keep on coming. And I do not mean that in a physical sense. I'm talking about, just the political questions, the people looking to get to the truth as to whether or not you can really handle this. And he just does not have the proper protection. Okay. And again, I mean this figuratively. The guy is vulnerable and he's not catching up. Meanwhile, Brother Trump is surging. What happened Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania has catapulted him mega superstardom, and the excellent choice of Brother J.D. Vance, Senator from Ohio, just simply is positioning himself and the Republican Party for generational leadership. I'm talking about just having a awesome wave for many, many years to come. That's the setup. And there's nothing that Brother Biden seems to be able to do to avoid this onslaught. And again, we're using language, and part of the reason I'm using the language is to show you that you have to be careful, right? And that's what was going to happen, right? You need to be careful with the language. So Brother Lester Holt is almost babying him in this interview that we're about to critique earlier tonight. I mean, we're watching the Republican National Convention. That's where, we're focusing on the winners. We're focusing on, where the real deal is. Meanwhile, this happened at the White House earlier today. Okay. And it's just garbage. It's just absolute garbage. Brother Biden has resolved to put himself through this type of embarrassment. What would have to take place for him to go from where he was in the polls, where he fell to post that debate fiasco, and where he would have to then get to just catch up, but then to defeat Brother Trump in the electoral states that matter, in those battleground states that matter. He's not prepared to do it. He's not even able to inspire the nation to come together after an assassination attempt on a former president. Listen to how he sidesteps, how he tries to dance, how he tries to avoid, and it just looks pathetic. You can see through it. Here's the same guy who would point the finger and say, "Oh, that guy doesn't answer the questions. He's not answering the questions." And when you listen to this interview, you're going to be like, whoa, why don't you just answer the question, man? You're the one that's not answering the question. You're the one that's dancing. You're the one that won't give a straight answer. And Brother Lester Holt, gee whiz. I mean, I'm saying, babying this man, babying, almost speaking to him in the slowest possible way, the most gentle way. Like you're talking to someone who's 534 years old and you just want to make sure they can understand you. That does not prove anything about this man unless you can see through and you can see that he can't handle the punches. He's already punched out. He can't handle the fire. He's already fired out. So now he's just embarrassing himself. And furthermore, and we'll talk more about this later, but let's get to it, but we'll talk about it more later. Okay. The bottom line, brothers and sisters, is that this guy, his time has come and went. And now the gap is so wide in the states that you must win in order to seize 270 Electoral College. There's so much of a gap now that you would almost be a fool to even take the baton from this guy. Time is running out and Brother Trump is surging and Brother Biden is just wasting time, wasting space. So even if he does want to pass the baton right now, who can catch up? None of the normal traditional candidates, they're not going to be able to catch up. They're just going to be the ones who get blamed for losing to Brother Trump. Who wants that? Who wants that? And lastly, and then we'll get to the interview. Lastly, let me say this to you, brothers and sisters. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you being here. But I got to tell you one more thing, brothers and sisters. I got to tell you, the direct questions about, hey, can you take some responsibility for your language too? Putting Trump in the bullseye and all. You'll hear Brother Biden dancing, and just trying to deflect. Keep that word in your mind when you're listening to Brother Biden. Deflect. And you tell me if that is inspiring to you. You tell me if that's leadership to you. Okay, let's talk about it. Biden's interview earlier today with Lester Holt. Here we go, brothers and sisters.
Exclusive interview with President Biden.
Mr. President, there's a lot to talk about.
The president's urgent message to a deeply divided nation. Grappling with the fallout from the assassination attempt on former President Trump. The president calling for unity, even as he presses on in his bid to defeat him. And Republicans gathered to nominate and celebrate the man looking to reclaim the White House.
This is an NBC News special. Live from the White House, here's Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome to our special coverage. We're live at the White House, where earlier today I sat down for an exclusive one-on-one interview with President Biden. During our conversation, the president called on all Americans to tone down the heated rhetoric in the wake of the assassination attempt on former President Trump at a rally over the weekend. But he also doubled down on staying in the presidential race himself, despite calls from within his party to step aside. Our interview comes as Republicans kick off the first night of their convention in Milwaukee, formally making Mr. Trump their nominee to be the next president. We'll have full coverage led by my colleague Savannah Guthrie from the convention center after our interview with the president. But earlier today, I started by asking President Biden about his phone call with Mr. Trump after the assassination attempt. Here's our unedited conversation in its entirety.
Mr. President, thank you for sitting down with us. There's a lot to talk about. I'd like to start with the horrible events of last weekend. It has shocked a lot of Americans. A political rally, your opponent, Donald Trump, shot in the middle of greeting his supporters. You spoke to Mr. Trump afterward. Can you give me a sense of that conversation?
Very cordial. I told him how concerned I was and wanted to make sure I knew how he was actually doing. He sounded good. He said he was fine, and he thanked me for calling him. I told him he was literally in the prayers of Jill and me, and I hope his whole family was weathering this.
You were in Delaware when this happened. What was your first reaction?
My first reaction was, my God, look, there's so much violence now, the way we talk about it. I mean, the whole notion that there is this, there's no place at all for violence in politics in America. None. Zero. And we've reached a point where it's become too commonplace, not assassinations, but to talk about it. For example, the January 6th, the attack on the Capitol. Lester, I got in this race early on in 2020 for the 2020 race. I wasn't going to run again because I lost my son. I didn't feel, and until I watched what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. Those folks coming out of the woods with torches, carrying swastikas, singing the same Nazi bile. It was accompanied by this Ku Klux Klan, and a young woman was killed, and I was a bystander. And the then president was asked, what do you think? He said, they're very fine people on both sides. Not fine people on both sides. No excuse, zero.
Well, let's talk about the conversation this has started, and it's really about language, what we say out loud and the consequences of those. You called your opponent an existential threat on a call a week ago. You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that.
I didn't say crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was, there's very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing. Focus on his policies. Focus on the number of lies he told in the debate. Focus. I mean, there's a whole range of things that, look, I'm not the guy that said, I want to be a dictator on day one. I'm not the guy that refused to accept the outcome of the election. I'm not the guy who said that won't accept the outcome of this election automatically. You can't only love your country when you win. And so the focus was on what he's saying, and I mean, the idea.
But have you taken a step back and done a little soul searching on things that you may have said that could incite people who are not balanced?
Well, I don't think, look, how do you talk about the threat to democracy, which is real, when a president says things like he says? Do you just not say anything because it may incite somebody? Look, I've not engaged in that rhetoric. Now, my opponent is engaged in that rhetoric. He talks about there'll be a bloodbath if he loses, talking about how he's going to forgive all the, actually, I guess, suspend the sentences of all those who were arrested and sentenced to go to jail because of what happened in the Capitol. I'm not out there making fun of, like, remember the picture of Donald Trump when Nancy Pelosi's husband was hit with a hammer, joking about it?
This doesn't sound like you're turning down the heat, though. You've talked about
No. Look, when I'm turning down, we have to stop the whole notion that there are certain things that are contrary to our democracy that we're for. The idea of saying that I didn't win the election, when every court in the land, I don't know, 20 appeals said, including this conservative Supreme Court, said we won. The idea of having a loyalty pledge from all the folks who are in Republican MAGA, not all Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, saying that no, we lost the election, inflaming the people and say, So
what can you and what will you do, at least things you can control, to lower down the temperature, the rhetoric out there?
Continue to talk about the things that matter to the American public. It matters whether or not you accept the outcome of elections. It matters whether or not you, for example, talk about how you're going to deal with the border instead of talking about people as being vermin and all. I mean, those things matter. That's the kind of language that is inflammatory.
Mr. President, you've been in politics a very long time, so let's speak frankly. We're all adults here. Has this shooting changed the trajectory of this race?
I don't know, and you don't know either.
I don't know, but have something you've given thought to?
No, I've thought less about the trajectory of the case than two things. One, what his health is, that was secure, number one. And number two, what happens from here on in terms of the kind of coverage that the president and vice president and former president and new vice president get in terms of, look, I've never seen a circumstance where you ride through certain rural areas of the country and people have signs there, big Trump signs with middle signs saying F Biden, and a little kid standing there putting up his middle finger. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that is just inflammatory and a kind of viciousness. It's a very different thing than to say, look, I really disagree with the way he takes care of taxes, the way he wants a $5 trillion tax cut for people who are making a lot of money next time around. Doesn't focus on working class people.
But those are policy issues, and our history is a country that can thoroughly hash out those issues.
And if you notice, what do I talk about with him? The policy issues where he's dividing the country. The policy issues that relate to democracy.
Another question, if I can, about Saturday. Of course, the former president was wounded. One of his supporters died. A couple more people were seriously injured. Was this a massive security failure?
I have had 2 meetings in the Situation Room with all the intelligence communities, the FBI, Secret Service, et cetera, and I've asked for a totally independent analysis, and we'll see what happens when that comes back.
Do you have confidence in the Secret Service? Do you feel safe?
I feel safe with the Secret Service, but look, and you saw, what we did see was the Secret Service who responded risked their lives in responding. They're ready to give their lives to the president. The question is, should they have anticipated what happened? Should they have done what they needed to do to prevent this from happening? That's a question that's an open question.
Is it acceptable that you have still not heard, at least publicly, from the Secret Service director?
Well, I've heard from them.
But have you heard from her publicly?
Publicly, I've sat down in a situation room downstairs with the Secret Service, the FBI, the national security agencies, the Homeland Security, all the major elements. And there's two pieces of this, too. And it's not an excuse, it's just nor an explanation. There's a major piece of this relates to domestic, local law enforcement. They play a large role. And so there's a different competent. I'm not saying they weren't competent either. I'm just saying it's a complicated process. And what has changed, by the way, Lester, is, you know me, I like to meet people. I like to walk out, shake hands, move, look at people in the eye, see what they're thinking. It's really curtailed that ability on my part and everybody's part. And so, because of the heightened notion that when you say there's nothing wrong with going to the Capitol, breaking in, threatening people, a couple cops dying, hanging up, putting up a noose, a gallows for the former vice president. And somehow and then you say you're going to forgive people for that? You're going to pardon them? That was just a normal response? That is not. I have my entire career voted against and railed against and moved against the idea of violence is never appropriate. Never, 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 never in politics.
All right, I want to ask you about some other developing news today, if I can. Judge Cannon dismissed the documents case, as you may have heard, in Mar-a-Lago. Can I first get your reaction to that?
I'm not surprised. It comes from the immunity decision the Supreme Court ruled on, and Clarence Thomas, in his dissent, said that independent prosecutors appointed by the Attorney General aren't legit. That's the basis on which this judge moved to dismiss. And but I had an independent prosecutor look at me. They spent months on my going through, and I was totally cooperative in and out of my house. And there were, I don't know, the last time in, there were like 10, 12 agents in my house for 9 hours unaccompanied, going through every single thing I had. That's appropriate. And they looked at me and concluded I didn't do a damn thing wrong. But my generic point is that it's, the basis upon which the case was thrown out, I find specious because I don't agree with Clarence Thomas' dissent and or the Supreme Court decision on immunity.
In light of this decision, the delay in the Georgia case, the Supreme Court decision on immunity, which you referenced, the former president has seen a series of legal wins recently. You have actively campaigned on his legal woes. Can you do anything like that anymore?
Sure. I can talk about what I think is appropriate. I think the Supreme Court made a terrible decision. I think the justices he appointed have, in fact, been the most conservative. And I would argue, if you survey constitutional scholarship, they seem out of touch with what the founders intended.
Before this violent turn of events over the weekend, the talk, as you know, was about you and your future, if you should stay in the race. Your allies, James Clyburn, Nancy Pelosi, have kind of put it out there that they're waiting for your decision, giving you time to make your decision. What I hear from you is that you made your decision. Are you still comfortable in that decision? Has anything changed in the last several days?
No.
What do you make of people like Nancy Pelosi, though, who seem to be of the opinion that there is a window for you to make this choice? What aren't they getting?
Look, we knew this was going to be a close race from the moment he announced. The idea that we are in a situation where, if you look at all the polling data shows a lot of different things, but there's no wide gap between us. It's essentially a toss-up race. And I think one of the arguments that get made, you have the most successful presidency of any president in modern history, maybe since Franklin Roosevelt. Passed more major legislation no one thought could get done. We're able to put together consensus. We're able to unite NATO. We're able to deal in foreign policy. Why don't you just decide to rest on those laurels? And the answer is because the job's not finished.
Do you feel like you've weathered the storm on this issue of whether you should be on the ticket or not?
Look, 14 million people voted for me to be the nominee in the Democratic Party. Okay? I listened to them.
In your last TV interview, you were asked if you had watched the debate. Your answer was, I don't think so, no. Have you since seen it?
I've seen pieces of it. I've not watched the whole debate.
And the reason I ask, because I guess the question is, are you all on the same page? Are you seeing what they saw, which was moments of, frankly, that appeared to be, you appeared to be confused?
Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where are you on this? Why didn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. I had a bad night. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I had been, without it making it, I screwed up. But
I just asked the question because the idea that you may or may not have seen what some of these other folks have seen, you're not on the same.
I'd have to see, I was there. I'd have to see it, I was there. And by the way, seriously, you won't answer the question, but why didn't the press talk about all the lies he told?
Well,
I didn't know anything about that.
We have reported many of the issues that came up during that debate.
No, you haven't.
We'll provide you with them.
God love you.
Okay. President Obama put out a statement after the debate, but should he and Michelle Obama be doing more to express their confidence in you?
No, they're helping me. They've helped me from the beginning. This is my job to get this done.
Have you talked to him recently about this?
I haven't talked to him in a couple weeks.
Have you talked to him since this issue came to light, since the debate?
I don't think, I may have, I don't think so.
Who do you listen to on deeply personal issues, like the decisions whether to stay in the race or not?
Me. Look, I've been doing this a long time. The idea that I'm the old guy, I am, I'm old. But I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two, my mental acuity's been pretty damn good. I've gotten more done than any president has in a long time, in 3.5 years. So I'm willing to be judged on that. I understand why people say, God, he's 81 years old. Whoa, what's he going to be when he's 83 years old or 84 years old? It's a legitimate question to ask.
I want to ask you about, just shortly before you and I sat down, former President Trump named his vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance. What does that tell you, his qualities, what does that tell you about former President Trump's values in terms of who he will surround himself with in a next administration should he win?
Well, it's not unusual. He's going to surround himself with people who agree completely with him. Have a voting record. I support him. Even though if you go back and listen to the things that J.D. Vance said about Trump.
Well, he said some things about you, yeah.
Oh, no, well, he said something about me, but see what he said about Trump. What's with you guys? Come on, man. Look, the point I'm making is that J.D. Vance has adopted the same policies, no exceptions on abortion, making sure that he supports the new $5 trillion tax cut that Trump wants to give in the next administration, signing on to the whole notion of whether or not we're going to, he says there's no climate change happening. I mean, he signed on to the Trump agenda, which he should if he's running with Trump.
Mr. Trump has said he's giving you a chance to redeem yourself, basically the idea of engaging in another debate.
We're going to have another debate.
Yeah, you're going to have one in September that's on the books. Would you be open to doing one in the next few weeks?
I'm going to debate him when we agreed to debate, and I'm going to debate him in September.
But if the opportunity came up to do one between now and then, is there a sense of wanting to get back on the horse?
I'm on the horse. Where have you been? I've done 22 major events, met thousands of people, overwhelming crowds, a lot happening. I'm on the horse. What I'm doing is going out and demonstrating to the American people that I have command of all my faculties, that I don't need notes, I don't need teleprompter. I can go out and answer any questions at all. And I stood there when NATO was in town. I stood there for an hour and answered questions.
If you were to continue to run and be officially nominated, what happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another?
Yeah, what happens if you have another performance on that on that level?
I don't plan on having another performance on that level.
All right. Mr. President, it's always good to talk to you, good to see you. Thank you for making some time for us.
Sometimes come and talk to me about what we should be talking about.
All right.
Okay, the issues.
Always happy.
All right, brothers and sisters. Yeah, I'm just going to roll with what I said in the opening for you, and I'm going to let me know if you want me to break this thing down for you step by step. If that's something you want, then leave us some comments and let us know that you want me to tear this stuff apart. Because he is shot. And again, I use the word figuratively. I know we are in a whole different place after Saturday, so I'm making sure you understand how I'm using the term, okay? Just so that you are clear. Words do matter. We understand that. So I'm being clear that he's not dampening down the rhetoric. In fact, his deflection and reversals of the things that he's being asked and just trying to put it back on Brother Trump, just the wrong notes. He's hitting the wrong notes in the wrong time, just like a shot boxer would do. You know, you've just had one too many punches. You've just been in too long, and he shot. There's just no other way of looking at it. And if you cared for him, that's why we've made calls on this channel. Say, hey, Jill, what the heck are you doing? Hey, Hunter, what the heck are you doing? If you love this man, a man who has served his country for decades, why are you still going to send him back out for another round? And again, I'm talking boxing. I'm talking figuratively. Okay, I understand that some of these words have more than one meaning. That's not what I'm saying. If that's what I want to say, I'd say it. I'm not saying any of that crap. I'm the one saying he should have retired before any of this even happened. So if you want to know what I have said and what I've been saying is, I didn't want to see him go through any of this. I'm getting no joy out of watching this man be embarrassed. His legacy, the party, etc. gives me no joy. I don't want to see it. And the only way we were not going to see it is if somebody took the keys from great-great-grandpa. And that didn't happen. Or if great-great-grandpa for some reason decided, hey, it's time to pass the baton. But clearly, he does not have the wherewithal and the wisdom to do that. And now, post what happened, the tragedy in Butler, where Brother Trump turned it into triumph, you're not catching this guy. I don't care what he claims about some national poll. He knows, and I know, and hopefully you know, brothers and sisters, the national polls mean nothing. What are the battlegrounds saying? The battlegrounds are saying right now, this man loses, and he loses by a landslide. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then if he's right about what he's claiming, that this is such an existential threat, that democracy's on the ballot, and that everything is going to be coming down to November, and once November comes, if Democrats don't win, if they don't stop Brother Trump, then it's all lost. Well, if that's the case, then Brother J.D. Vance is the future. So you might as well get ready for Brother J.D. Vance 2028. Period. Brother Trump in 2024, Brother Vance 2028. Why? Because this guy was the wrong horse to try to ride in on. He should have been a one-term president, and he should have been thanked with honor and respect for his service. He should have passed the baton. Instead, one more fight. He wants one more fight, one more fight. Yeah, those one more fights. Look at what happens. Look at what happens when you keep trying to do that as a boxer. You could be an undefeated champion, multi-division champion, but there comes a time when you pass the baton where you no longer should be taking those kind of shots. Again, figuratively. And this guy is way beyond that. Father Time and whatever other problems he has kicked his tail, and it's not getting any better. And again, this is not just about can you walk, which he even has trouble doing. It's not just that. It's you have a competitor. You have to be an inspiring leader right now, and he does not have it to do. It's not there for that. You know it and I know it. So you're just giving away the election because he's stubborn. Well, that makes no sense. All right, let us know, brothers and sisters. Thank you for spending the time with us. And let me just make it clear one more time. We are not for any type of violence. In fact, we were calling for this man to just sit down with honor and dignity and tell him thank you for his service. But instead, I'm the one who doesn't want him to be falling out, collapsing or anything like that, right? There's only so much that a person can take. And like I know, the man's on his last leg. So why not enjoy your family, enjoy your grandkids? Okay? Because even if he had done it before Saturday, there was still a chance that somebody else, one of the other leaders of the party, one of the other up and rising stars may have been able to take the baton, hook up with a new vice president, right? Because whoever he selects or whoever he anoints or whatever, then that person has to get a new vice president, right? So maybe that team could have been some kind of rock star team to have a chance in these battleground states. That didn't happen. And now, if he were to try to do it now, forget about it. Forget about it. It's even worse than last week now. It's even worse than that debate. Why? Because Brother Trump stood strong. And he's the ultimate rock star right now. If he passes it to Kamala, she does nothing but lose. Kamala has no chance against the Brother Trump that we're looking at right now, teamed up with Brother Vance. You can forget it. You can forget it. And again, it's because the party did not have the fortitude to face this man, and this man didn't have the wisdom to be a one-term president and to set the party up to have them in position to win in November. You have all of those forces coming together where people have been making missteps while they've been claiming this is such an existential threat. Well, you sure didn't act like it. You sure didn't prepare for it. And you're going to take the consequences. What are the consequences? You're going to lose, and the way it looks, you're going to lose in a landslide. Again, brothers and sisters, thank you for being here. And if you want me to go through this step by step, let me know, comments, and we can definitely, see what we can do about giving you an extended analysis, step by step, maybe even question by question from Brother Holt, who again babied this man. Brother Holt babied him. His tone, everything. There was no, he's just like spoon feeding this guy. Okay, it was almost like Brother Holt didn't want to embarrass him. Like I know I'm in the White House, and I know this guy's frail. I know this guy's on his last leg, and so I'm speaking 20 times slower than I would normally would. I'm not going to press to the degree that I can press. Why? Because he doesn't want to embarrass this guy. What kind of president is that? You got to worry about embarrassing to ask questions? Then what are we doing? See, this is smoke and mirrors again. See? Smoke and mirrors. Well, I'm on the horse. No, you're not. You're being babied right now. That ain't on no horse. You were caught giving the questions to the radio hosts in Philly, right? You call in call in Morning Joe, and we can hear you shuffling through your notes. You had the press conference in NATO, and what? Oh, you're reading off a list of people you're going to call on with somebody walking around with a microphone. You've been shielded. Given an Oval Office address or since Saturday. Okay. Hey, now you got the pomp and the circumstance of the White House and the Oval Office. You get to sit down and read the teleprompter. As a former lawyer, I would hope that you could still read, and he can. I'm not convinced because you're reading a teleprompter, sir. Brother Trump offered you, hey, let's get it on. Let's have another debate. And I see you backed off from that. Brothers and sisters, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. So when Brother Holt asked him, say, hey, you want to get back on the horse? Yeah. When that pilot has an issue, they try to get him back in the air as soon as possible. You don't let that just linger. You get his butt back up in the air. Huh? Top Gun, you remember? Get him back flying. No, he doesn't want no parts of it. He wants to spin us. He wants to tell us, well, I'll do it when we agree to do it in September. September? Oh, man, get out of here. And you saw Brother Trump's response when the tragedy hit. In that moment, he's raising his fist with blood on his face. He stood up the same moment, the same day, the same event, and he stood strong. Now, if I had blown it the way this guy had blown it at that first debate, and I get a chance, I get another chance at, another bite at the apple, and you're telling me I can fix that tomorrow? I don't have to wait till September? Please. Thank you. Let's go. Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to that. I was suffering. I'd had to suffer from now till September to try to right that wrong. But you're telling me, Brother Trump, that you saying I can come in right now and we can do it in front of the world? Man, let's do it. If I really believed what I'm trying to sell, the smoke I'm selling to the people, if he really believed that, who wouldn't want a do-over? If they really believed it was just a one-time thing and they really were going to do this great job, who wouldn't want a do-over immediately? If you truly believed you had the goods. He knows he doesn't. What he's hoping is somewhere between now and September, something else happens where he doesn't have to. Or, Brother Trump makes some type of incredible gaffe or something, hoping anything can happen. Why? Because he doesn't have the goods. Brother Biden doesn't have the goods. If he had the goods, he'd say, yeah, let's do it right now. Right now. What would you say? You got a chance and say, well, hey, here's a biology test, 12th grade. If you don't pass this test, you can't graduate. And for whatever reason, you're sick, you're exhausted, whatever other excuses you have that Biden had of the day of the exam, the day of the test, and you fail the biology test, that would mean you can't graduate. And then the teacher tells you, well, look, I heard you had a bad day. You say, yes, I don't know what happened. It was just terrible. It's cold. I was exhausted. And he says, okay, I tell you what, you can come back next year and take the whole class over again for a year. Or if you'd like to, give you a couple of days to feel better and you come back in and you can do it again and still graduate. What are you going to do if you really believed it was just the code that messed you up? As soon as that code's done, you're ready to go. Let's go. You're saying, thank you for the chance, Mr. and Mrs. Teacher. I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's go. You're not going to say, oh, well, I'll just come back in September. No problem. Skip that. You can't fool me. And I'm going to say it one last time. He did not say he was going to be changing his language about the bullseye. And when he heard that bullseye stuff, what did he say? Crosshairs. He was even confused with that. And that's why I bring it back full circle. I'm going to say it one more time. Words matter. So let me be clear. I'm talking about being shot like a boxer is shot, a world championship boxer is shot, and they still want to go in there and fight again. It's a classic boxing term. We are not for any violence. We don't want any violence. What we wanted was for this man to pass the torch, retire with dignity and honor. And he's refusing to do that. So now he's got to take more shots. And he can't handle these shots that he's going to be taking. Again, figuratively. Meanwhile, you got the rock star Brother Trump on his way to becoming the 47th president. And he's playing the game strong with power and moving forward. Made an excellent generational pick with Brother J.D. Vance. Hey, Trump train is rolling. You might want to get on it. Thank you for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. Again, if you want me to dig into further analysis on this, let me know. You have a great night. We appreciate you.